Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, a weekly podcast where we question our underlying beliefs about the nature of the universe and so on. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
That was actually about 6 seconds then, it felt like, that delay. This week we are going to talk,
Really?
Since there is a huge delay, we'll have time to do this as we speak. We're going to talk about meditation. Although that was an immediate reaction. It's very hard. I don't know if you've noticed on the podcast recently, but we switched to Zoom and sometimes it's the timing goes a bit weird because of how it delays. So hopefully this still sounds okay, but just don't forget that we're talking to each other from halfway across the world, if you can believe that. Meditation. What do you reckon?
I think I should do it more.
Me too. I did.
What about you, Michael?
Yeah. Me too. Do you know? I broke for the first time. I did one in the bath. I thought, let's just make this a meditation.
Oh.
And I think the nice thing about meditation is if you haven't done it for ages, you have quite a good one. Yeah, it's like sort of loads of crust has built up in your brain. And you can start to sort of think about things more clearly, start to remember that maybe you instead of just grumbling about a nearby twat, you can try and wish them well in their lives, things like that. So we're talking about meditation, maybe a bit
of... It's a very healthy attitude.
Maybe a bit of self-help type stuff. Yeah, self-help. Because we know self-help sells.
It does, yes. This will be the clickbait episode.
Clickbait self-help episode. Did you react straight away?
The delay's a bit much today.
It's quite extreme.
Yeah.
Let's see. But then sometimes it's not.
Wait. Maybe we should just do a Google Hangout.
I just need to be able to record it though. Anything can happen.
What about Skype? You can record Skype.
Can you? Oh.
Should we do Skype?
Okay. All right.
Should we try it?
Let me see if I know what my password is for Skype.
Welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Tech Support Podcast.
It's just Skype. Every time I launch, I just go, why are you so bad, Microsoft? Why do you make things worse? It's just changes for the weirder.
To mute probably.
Ooh, and the fucking... Hi Ivanka, how's it going? Haven't seen you for a while. Despite how the podcast may seem. Haven't actually seen her for 3 weeks, listeners.
3 weeks. It's going... I had an apocalyptic dream last night.
Did you?
It's connected to my favourite beach. I dreamt that I got there and somebody had cut down all the trees.
Right.
And there were some workers making some sort of... some sort of factory. And then they all came in for a swim and I was like, what have you done? Why have you cut all the trees down? So I think it's Amazon burning related. And then I was trying to find Nick. I didn't know where he was. I couldn't find my mobile phone. It was just all a bit much last night. So that set me up for a particular mood this morning. So over the breakfast table, Nick and I discussed the state of the world, only briefly, and then I had fresh figs on toast. It was delicious. How are you, Michael?
I'm okay. I've got a few little bits and pieces I was going to talk about. I got this email last night. I guess it's one of those. It doesn't look like spam. It looks like one that was accidentally sent to me because someone gave the wrong email address about a student loan refinance application. But the only reason, I've got 4 emails in this thing. I guess they're not. I guess they've gone to the wrong person. But loan amount $198,674.
Wow.
Student loan refinancing. What's that?
poor other American Michael Forrest.
Is that real? Like, do people have a 200 grand student debt?
I believe so in America.
Jesus Christ.
Depends on the university you
like
go
a
to.
third world country, isn't it? It's like, what are they doing?
Well, I think some of those degrees, like if you go to a better university, they're like, I think 70 grand maybe.
Jesus. What are they playing at?
And then you've got to live.
Like,
Don't know. They're
do you not want an educated population? I guess they don't. They just
No.
want a privatised education system and no one to be able to do anything. Everyone to stay trapped. Like, it's incredible. So that's what I was thinking about this morning. And then I had an admin breakthrough.
Oh.
I found a way to make admin feel enjoyable and worthwhile, if you can believe it. I've got this because I've got this giant Coda doc where I'm tracking all my activity, and I made a little button that's like start doing admin now, and I just decided to do 20 minutes a day, and so I've just got a backlog, a list of things I have to do, and I just press this button and it shows me what the top of the list is, and like times how long it takes me to do it, and I just time box it to 20 minutes, and it's quite fun. And it's like I think my problem with it's made me realise my problem with admin has always been that it can just randomly end up taking the entire morning. So if you just do it regularly but time boxed, it feels a lot more okay. So I've actually finally started selling some synth modules and taking stuff to the post office and replying to emails and doing all that sort of thing that just I did not have a space in my life for before, and it's quite fun because it's sort of like kind of easy, but you sort of feel good that you did it, that you got it out of the way. Like, so I'd recommend it. I could it's like I started sort of seeing if I could write a little video on how to do it, but it gets into gets a bit complicated, like this Coda thing, if you want to do stuff sometimes. So I was like, well, maybe I should build a plug-in for it or something. And then it's like, oh God, I don't have time for this. But yeah, I am like tracking. I'm like everything I do now. I sort of start the timer on it, and then I can see exactly how much time I spent on everything. Which is, I don't know. I think it's fine. I don't think it's too crazy.
I think I might need to nick your app.
Well, maybe
set up my own version.
Well, the thing with it is, it sort of needs to. Like, I think the reason it works for me is because it integrates into my larger sort of time tracking approach. So I can sort of see my little pie chart segment of admin time spent. Because my friend sent me a little pie chart of his time allocation. It was like 40% admin. And I was like, and I had my own pie chart. I was like, I do 0 admin. I never do any admin. And I thought, like, that's got to. And I always feel like he's a lot better at like reaching out to people. He does a lot more touring and gets a lot more gigs and gets a lot more, he knows a lot of people. And I think part of that, and he sort of has a tape label and things like that. So he's able to run those things, but I think he sort of feels bad that there's so much time spent on admin. Whereas I'm like, well, I'm sure there's something to be learned from, I should be doing a little bit. So that's when I sort of set myself a little
more
task.
than none.
So I'm doing half an hour. I'm doing half an hour learning Italian, half an hour admin, and half an hour playing every day at the moment.
Wow, busy.
Tick off in my Good Habits app by Good to Hear Limited. Download Good Habits by Michael Forrest in the App Store now, not on Android.
I've been using Habits again.
Yeah.
I've been using it to track vegetarian days. So I'm not really using it to force vegetarian days, but rather to record them.
Yeah.
So the interface is not designed for that, but it helps me understand how many days I'm vegetarian. I had 11 days straight of vegetarianism which ended last week because Nick caught some fish. And then, but I've started using it because, my sore shoulder that I've been grumbling about for probably over a year. It probably had its mention. There are exercises that I should do every day. And if I did them every day, I probably wouldn't have a sore shoulder. But what I do is I wait till it's really, really painful and then I do my exercises. Yeah. So I've now set up a shoulder exercise habit in my Habits app. And I've also given Nick permission to nag me.
Okay. Well,
which I don't like at all.
Well, Well, when I first made the app, like there was a guy that said that he'd really he was supposed to do these exercises every day, and the app had really helped him sort of enjoy that, actually sort of do it and sort of enjoy doing it. So it's a handy little app. The thing I'm thinking of. I don't want to overcome. I've always tried to keep it as simple as possible and add a load of features to it. But what was I thinking? It'd be quite nice to be able to, I don't know, maybe start a timer on something, or be able to actually kind of keep track of what you did. But then that just means then you've got to be able to look at that, and then I've got to build loads of screens where you kind of dive into your activity, and then it gets all out of hand. So tell you what, I've been working on iOS development. And it's a goddamn slog. It's an absolute slog. I've had maybe 1 or 2 days where I felt like I was productive all day. And I've had 10, 15 days where it's just been, why doesn't this thing work? Why does this take so long? Why is this so awkward? How the documentation does not line up with what actually happens. And there's no way to look at the source code. And it's you just waste so much time. Their stuff is can you just make... I know you've made Swift open source, but I wish they would just make their stuff... it's just obnoxious how you just hit a wall with it, because you end up searching for code snippets on GitHub that maybe someone in Japan figured this out at some point, and then you're looking at this Japanese source code and going, okay, this is how they did it there. Is this how you're supposed to do it? Because there's no information. And they're not responsive on the chats, on the boards, and they're not. Nothing's open source. And compared to the velocity I was able to get, the amount of work, the number of screens I was churning out in React Native, and the sort of quality of user interface I was able to achieve very quickly in Flutter, compared to Swift UI is all very well, but it's optimized for an Apple keynote. It is not optimized for reality. And this is always the way that Apple stuff comes out. And I'm so sick of it. So anyway, that's my rant that's been my world for the last few days.
Do we need to do what's React Native versus Swift UI?
Yeah, there's different ways you can make apps. Some of them work on Android and iOS, but they may add a bit more cruft underneath. So if you use Apple's official stuff, then that's quite close to the metal and will run quite fast and keep your battery alive and things like that. Whereas sometimes if you use some of these third-party things, there's sacrifices made there. So React Native has a little bit of a performance cost because it uses a higher level language on top of everything, whereas Flutter is sort of re-implementing everything from scratch. So sometimes something you expect to be able to use just doesn't exist. So there's trade-offs to all of these things. And the reason I'm using the Apple official stuff is because that's the only way to use the new features that are in their operating system, so that I can actually maybe try and get featured in the App Store. Because that's what makes them feature you.
I was thinking about your Habit app.
Yeah.
Maybe I think it's a funny little struggle, but it's what time shall I set the reminder for?
Yeah.
So I think Apple Activity thing does a thing where it goes, usually you have done more by now. So yeah, perhaps rather than...
That's machine learning stuff. That's Core ML, behavior monitoring. It's something that it would be very easy to do a bad job on, and it would be very hard to tell if I'd done a good job on it without a lot of feedback and testing from users. So it's something I'd obviously it'd be nice. I'd like to do stuff like that, but I just don't really have the capability without the ability to user test and things.
In the negative column for Apple's Activity app, I have never, since I've had an Apple Watch, swum in a swimming pool. And every time I start swimming, it goes, would you like to record a pool swim? No, I would not.
Still no.
So I'm in the sea with wet fingers and lots of water around me, trying to go outdoor swim, open water swim, and it just doesn't. It just refuses to learn.
Yeah.
It refuses. So I'm gonna not approve that.
In theory, iOS 13 does some on-device training, so it's possible that it might get better at detecting that. But anyway. I'm not gonna let you get away, 'cause you can't make your mind up in time. 'Cause I'm gonna make you think about all the ways you have a better life. I'll be in my So sit still while I tie and while I give you this. I mean, speaking of Apple, I suppose they've been building in sort of meditation and mindfulness style features into their products, haven't they? Like take a 10-minute break. It's time to breathe, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, they have. I don't know. My sister's convinced that the time to breathe one does actually detect that she's got a watch as well, that your heart rate might be higher, and that it's going, hang on a minute, take a deep breath. I'm not entirely convinced, but yeah. But I don't use it. I just go, no.
Yeah, I've never.
You take a deep breath.
I did manage to keep on because I haven't worn my watch for ages, but I put it on like yesterday to test something, and it was doing that whole take a 10-minute break. I'm like, oh yeah, this goddamn cycle of psychological warfare from just leave me alone. I know I'm busy. I just had one of those head down for hours, didn't stop for lunch days yesterday, and the watch was bullying me.
Well, I've never been asked to take a 10-minute break. Was I supposed to tell it to let it do that or something? It tells me to stand up all the time.
Oh no, that's what I mean. No. Stand up for 10 minutes. Well, don't you stand up? Doesn't that imply break? To you?
Well, no, it doesn't.
Just mean stand up. Just keep working really hard. Just stand up. Maybe, okay.
Yeah, that's how. Yeah, I don't.
I've got a standing. My desk is an electric standing desk, but it doesn't work anymore. But it just meant I could stand up and work, and it was great. But I haven't been able to do that for ages, so whatever. When did you do your first meditation, Ivanka?
I don't know. It's a good question.
What was your
Probably
attitude?
I think I may have done my first meditation sort of at the end of a yoga class, maybe as a teenager, 16, 17, that sort of guided meditation. You're walking through a garden and you relax, that kind of lie down meditation.
Yeah.
And then I think I actively tried to learn how to meditate from LBI onwards.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that's like 10 years.
I think that's where I sort of
15 years now.
went to actually rocked up at some sort of meditation class or, something like that and had a go. I remember going, the first meditation class I attended, I was sat in a chair all the whole time, all I was bothered by was the fact that I had a really itchy nose.
Yeah,
and I was like, am I supposed to scratch my nose? Am I supposed to ignore the scratch? I don't understand anyway. So that was all I was obsessed by.
It's that I just can't deal with the itches like me. It's such a problem. I think I'm quite an itchy person. Now you're thinking about it, I can see you.
I'm scratching.
We're going to get some Ivanka nose holding audio. Every
As
so
I
often
sit here
we get a bit of
scratching.
She's holding her nose. Does she not know she's being recorded?
Yes. So yes, that was my first real experience of a proper meditate. Proper, she says in inverted commas.
Do you know, I think the closest thing I did to a first meditation was probably Robert Lewis, kind of doing a bit of kind of close your eyes, put yourself, sort of basically hypnotherapist type practice. Although I didn't do too much of it after the first couple of sessions, but just the way the fact that an imagined memory can sort of have a similar emotional impact to the real memory or something. You sort of can't tell the difference somehow. So it's possible to sort of picture yourself in a situation that you like a best possible situation that they could be, and sort of walk through that and experience it, and then you genuinely feel like it happened afterwards, and it just goes in. And I think that's quite crazy, isn't it?
I do like a guided meditation. So I do like, I had quite a good habit of sitting down every morning for 10 to 15 minutes before I did anything. And that was in the 3 months or so before I met Nick. And then ceased to be an activity.
That's what's made me find it hard to find time to do it, because when you live with someone, it's like you don't have the same ability to just you don't have the same control over the space. Like maybe I could do it here at the studio. But you need to be somewhere where you're not going to be interrupted, and I mean that in itself is a privilege, isn't it? Like just being able to
massively
have some space to just not even try. I tried to do it on a train once, and of course you're sort of still always aware that you might be approaching Victoria or whatever, or there's I need to do it every day, and then is there someone coming through, and you sort of it's I'm quite a I think you got to do things properly. I sort of think interrupting it, opening your eyes, certainly when you get an alert on your phone and it's I've got to. What's that going to be? Is it going to be important? You get into that, so it's hard to sort of make space for it.
Yeah, I think the doing it properly statement is quite an interesting one, because I think you've got this whole. There's the mindfulness craze, then there's Buddhist meditation, then there's just, kind of, I don't know, more, I want to say medicinal, but, that sort of just stop and think about something. And I think on the train, I used to get quite good at listening to, there's this podcast called Audio Dharma, and they're sort of recorded Buddhist talks. And I think the first meditation class I went to was a Buddhist monk. And I just enjoyed the chat as well. And it's not come for an hour and sit and nobody talk to each other and try not to scratch your nose. Yeah. He would also talk about something. And then you get this sort of introduction to these Buddhist concepts that they do resonate quite well with me. So I enjoyed doing that. And on the train, I was able to then join in that closing down type or sort of being very focused on what I'm doing. And sometimes I'm a bit confused about the difference between just being focused on one thing versus meditating. Because I read a lot at one point by Thich Nhat Hanh, or however you pronounce his name, and he talked about things like walking meditations, where you are very, very focused on putting one step in front of the other, and that is what you're doing, and that is a meditation. So I don't know. I think this doing it properly is kind of somehow inhibiting the concept.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, there's got to be a spectrum of it shouldn't. Yeah, it shouldn't necessarily have to be all or nothing. But you worry that are you going to get into the same state without if you aren't in that sort of quiet, uninterrupted situation. And I sort of wonder sometimes. But yeah, I did sort of go to the London Buddhist Centre in Bethnal Green, a few years later than that initial thing. And yeah, and I've mentioned it before, I think, I really loved the sort of metta bhavana thing of picture someone you're close to, may you be well, may you be happy, free from suffering, may you progress. Yeah. And I really thought that it was that well-being, but not static. To me, that's what really sold that to me. It's it's all very well being free from suffering, but I think you've also got to be moving. You've got to be progressing as well. You've got to be moving forwards, and that's probably what I've come back to, because I used I used Headspace. I did all the Headspaces, And it was fine, but I find there's a lot of kind of like picture a ball of glowing light coming from your chest and expanding. I found that a bit contrived, to be honest. I find that quite hard to get behind, because it is sort of like just, it's not human, is it? It's just like, here's a thing, here's some light. Well, what's light? Light's just a thing. Although when I read a book which I have forgotten the name of, but where they talked about, like, on the in-breath, like, breathe in this kind of, breathe in everyone's sort of pain and suffering, and then breathe out healing kind of thing. And I found that quite that's quite a nice way to walk down the street, just kind of like, it sort of makes you aware of people's faces and expressions, and like you sort of think, and you can almost like see that you just took some of their anxiety away and sort of gave them a bit more.
or imagine, yeah.
You can sort of imagine you see it happening, and that can feel quite good. But it does make you sort of probably more likely to, if someone is in genuine trouble, to notice that and perhaps kind of make a real connection. The danger with all this is, like, I can't be bothered to watch Russell Brand's videos on YouTube anymore, for example, because he bangs on too much about this sort of thing. And his kind of knee-jerk thing is, and you've got to be at one with the universe, and we're all just energy, and, well, maybe not quite that, but, like, there's a bit too much of that sort of, I don't know if it's hyperbolic. I think it's fine, it's true, but it's like, it's so sort of generic that it sort of lacks any real information when you start talking about that sort of thing. When you start talking about everything as being connected and everything as being part of a great whole, that's a nice way to think and to feel, but it's also quite thin on information, quite thin on things to actually think about.
I mean, he has got that bit of the recovering addict kind of, he needs that, and that's fine. But I think, cool. So I don't mind. I don't listen to him very often. When he went through his whole "don't vote" phase, I was like, but listening to him the other week with Brené Brown, I didn't mind the degree of spirituality or we're all part of the universe kind of thing, because Brené Brown sort of was in it as well. But they had this interest. I can't even remember if I told. I'm a little. The only thing I'm struggling with at the moment is how many things I've already mentioned on podcast at some point.
Yeah, I'm having a bit of that too, and I hate that.
But the one of the things that came up in their talk is this thing that people who believe that everybody is doing their best, who genuinely believe that, are happier people, and they are more able to hold their boundaries and more able to help themselves, look after themselves. So even in the extreme context, Brené Brown had done some research with women who had left domestic abuse situations, and the people who genuinely believed, who like, I love him, but he's not well at the moment. He's doing the best that he can, but his best is going to kill me and my children, so I need to leave. So it's not a malicious. I'm not sure if I'm explaining this well or if it'll come back well enough to the universe thing. But I think this holding a space where you believe that everybody is trying their best and doing their best, and if you're able to do that, then I think everyone's connected and the universe is connected. That's kind of connected to your whole wishing well to others. It's that whole understanding that that person's doing their best, but their best just really hurts me at the moment, so I'm not going to engage with them. Or, I'm working for that person and I'd love to do a great job, but the way they work makes me ill, so I can't work with them. That sort of like understanding your boundaries within within your space in the universe, I think is quite, and I think that comes from taking a moment and being conscious, and that I think that's part of meditation.
So it's interesting you talk about boundaries, and I mean, I'm going to sort of skirt around something that I'm not sure I should necessarily be talking about it in public, but I kind of feel like, so basically, my brother was horrible to me this week, as happens every so often. This time in the, it's a problem, but like I was able to remain. My engagement, I was able to remain positive throughout, despite the fact I was being told to fuck off for speaking, like, for anything, and like wished unhappy, that kind of thing, like to my face. I managed to sort of, because I think I have enough, like inner calm, inner composure, in order to not let that stuff like hurt me too much, and I know it doesn't really. I'm not going to take it too personally. But what really sets him off is whenever I try to establish a boundary.
Right.
So with an unhappy person, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to characterize my, it's hard to sort of sensitively characterize my brother, but there is a reaction to being asked to respect my boundaries that is what always results in the most extreme reactions.
I think it's quite tricky with, I think siblings and very close family are uniquely difficult to set boundaries with, I think. Because, so for example, I've broken up with somebody before, and the phone calls just got more and more nasty. And in the end, my brother took the phone off me, put it down. He was like, they just want attention. The nice behaviour didn't work. They've resorted to bad behaviour. There's nowhere to go here. You just got to stop picking up the phone. Okay. But you can't, how do you do that with your child or your sibling or your parent? It's much harder to it is much harder to set the boundaries. But then and I'm not being Brené Brown, right? I'm not sure I have the answers. I personally struggle to set boundaries on people that I really love or that are that close to me.
It's just that I think it's important, right? Like, because when someone's sort of like habitually going through boundaries that you're like, can you, it can be very one way, that like you do want to just go, can I just address this, because it's causing me pain, like it's causing me problems.
It's making me sad.
It's like it is definitely uniquely hard to do with family, and
I think so, because you can't just sack them. You can't just go, right, well, people do.
And I have.
Maybe they can,
I've
but
tried.
I can't.
But there's a limit. Like, it comes around, it's like, and I feel like, I'm not, look, I don't mind it being public that I have a difficult brother, because I know that what he reacts to me saying is so disconnected from what I actually think anyway, that I don't think that saying this will make that worse or change it, because he'll just think what he thinks. But I just decided I've just got to take it 1 year at a time, It's like, okay, this year's been a tough one. But maybe next year it'll be a bit better. But it's like, okay, this is 50, another 40, 50 years probably. And it's there's gonna be some horrible stuff happens, but there'll be those sort of oases of, this is someone that knows me better than anyone else in the world. Like that, I have a similar, I've got a slightly weird way of thinking sometimes that's like it's quite specific, and it's like it's shared. He's got that same thing, and when we do just have a grown-up connected conversation, it's like we can just talk so easily about stuff that I just wouldn't be able to have that kind of conversation with anyone else, because they just would be like, what are you going on about? Like, what? It's something weird.
But I think that's the sibling thing, isn't it?
And
like there's the shorthand that exists that doesn't exist with anybody else, because they're the people that you truly have known your whole life.
Yeah, and that's why they can so quickly wind you up, because the shorthand also applies to the that is the tip of an iceberg that results in you feeling bad. They can just say like one thing, and I know I can say one thing and it's probably going to set off some chain reaction in someone else that I didn't really want, but. No, the irony with family is like the more you avoid them, the more they assume that you're the way you were 10 years ago. And I'm kind of like, well, I've moved on. Like, so, but then you try and sort of, anyway, all I can do is, I don't know, try and make that clear.
Choose to blame all your problems on anyone but you. You could drink your life away to keep hiding from the truth. You could take it out on the ones who try to help you through. You could find yourself in a holding cell, being black and blue. Maybe you didn't have such a terrible, terrible time at all. Find a new perspective, less protected, let the anger fall. And may I find the ones who raised you, walk a mile in their shoes. If I can find a way to get back to the world, then so can you.
Coming back to the topic, I think this is critical to the way, this is one of the things that I think meditation, or that, especially that sort of Buddhist meditation offers, is it gives you the space to think about how you react to other people and how you're connected to other people and what that actually means.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely spoken about this before, but my first loving kindness meditation blew my mind in a really hippie way of like, oh my God, I've never really thought about it that way. And okay, I can, it doesn't, you have to revisit.
Yeah.
But, this person that irritates me and makes me really upset, I can do nothing about that person, but I can do a lot about how I react to it. And I think for me, that's quite a profound change.
And this is that loving kindness thing where you picture someone close to you, picture someone, well, yourself, may I be well, happy, etc. You picture someone you're close to, then you picture someone you sort of come into contact with but don't really know, and I really like that. It's like I'm suddenly sort of imagining the inner life of the person in the corner shop, and it's exactly. Like that's a really it just really kind of fills you with sort of like an empathy that is hard to come by any other way. It's like, suddenly, that's a person, then the next step being, someone that's causing you problems. And so the one that I did the other day, it was like, I just realized, I was trying to think of who it would be, because I always kind of have that, like, who's going to be the twat? Who's going to be the person I don't like? And the person I ended up, I was like, oh God, I know who that's going to be. And it's like the guy that I have to share a space with, like in a building with, the studio. That is, I don't know, but it was the first time that it's the first time of going, I need to wish him love and kindness and to progress and like things like that. Like, what would that mean? And the fact that I was just kind of harboring this unchecked, like, can you clean the toilet, please? I hate coming to this toilet in this state. Like, I only had that, and that just hurts you. Like, when you've got this sort of antipathy towards someone else, it just hurts you, and the other person doesn't even know about it. So that's why kind of meditating on it and sort of kind of looking at that, it lets you sort of short circuit or just remove some of that stuff that you're kind of holding on to, and like it's sort of building up like a little ball of like irritation in your life.
Yeah, I need to do a bit more of that.
But this was also, just a revelation I had. Like, if we can be wishing, though, all those people, if everyone was happier, that would just fix everything, wouldn't it? If everyone could just be a bit. If the people burning the rainforests or whatever they're doing were a bit happier in the first place. And I don't know, like, happiness is subjective thing, and I'm sure the people flying around in private jets and having a, irresponsible time think they're happy, but I don't think they do. I don't think but then if not, I suppose like if everyone meditated and actually, introspected on whether they were like fulfilled, maybe that's what it is. But I think like the more happiness we can put in the world, the better chance we have. Because I don't think people are voting leave if they're unhappy, but the things that are making them unhappy are, systemic problems that, like, if we could change the system so that people are happy, then doesn't that solve everything?
Well, yes. But I think there's also this thing about being the awareness, what you're talking about with connection. I think taking the time to think about other humans as people is also, I mean, that's what you were, talking about, the person who hands you your coffee at the coffee shop in the morning or whatever. Yeah. They're sort of putting them in this, bringing them into your world more consciously. Yeah. Just, I think, helps you think about people in general more kindly. Yeah. Because it taking that moment. I think the happiness. Yeah. Yeah, but so I had this interesting on the subject of world happiness and Amazon rainforest. I levered myself into a conversation on Twitter that was in Spanish, and I'd picked up enough to know to understand that basically, it's like it was somebody that we used to work with at Canonical, who's a nice. I have fond memories of a nice person from Argentina, and he was tweeting about, but hang on a minute, he was kind of saying, who is the rest of the world to tell Brazil what to do with 40% of their surface area of their country? And and I was like, I think we see, this is what we talk about when we talk about the inequality element. Like, so he brought up, what if we told Norway that they couldn't drill for oil on their land, which is kind of what we're telling everyone now. It's like, this is your territory that is full of something that right now has value, and you're not allowed to use that value. And I think what we're doing with and the difference though between a Norway or a UK and a Brazil is that Brazil is a poor country, and Norway, the United Kingdom, these are rich, wealthy countries. So, because my contribution was like, why doesn't he just, I'm sure he could make more money if he just held the rainforest to ransom and made us all pay for its freedom rather than actually exploiting it. Because the exploiting thing is kind of, you're not allowed to play with my football, and not only am I taking it home, but I'm actually going to burst it so nobody can play with it. And I think this... I think the maybe this is not at all relevant to our meditation conversation. This is
an ambling one. But it's, we observe the thoughts as they float past.
Yeah, but this one, it's like, I think that sort of Russell Brand, everyone's connected and the universe is connected, man. That's what it's about. It's like your action. There is no downstream. There is no other planet. There's no throwing something in the river and it's going to wash away. We're all swimming in each other's rubbish at the moment, and we're not. And I think that sort of the mindfulness element, not mindfulness, that the loving kindness piece helps you think about the world in that more connected way. So it's less about me and what I'm doing and how I'm going to be okay, and it's more about how may we be well, may we progress, kind of thing, rather than just about focused on me.
Yeah, the whole world. And I think, I like to go, you sort of expand it to the whole world, and then I like to expand it to all dimensions. All times in history. All universes. Why not?
Since forever.
Just make it seem
the parallels
as expansive as possible. All the aliens. Let's just expand our circle of empathy as wide as we can humanly imagine. Think about every sci-fi trope you've ever seen. Put it in there. I was thinking of recording one because I've got my own, and I thought I might just record one. sell it for 15 quid. Like, it's quite lucrative, this meditation stuff, isn't it? Is that a problem? Is that something to be cautious of, or does that just mean it's valuable?
I don't know. I think it's people looking for, I think, on the subject of rising mental health problems, I think, it is probably a lot better for you than all the, I still haven't got to the end of The Body Keeps the Score, but when I do one day, but in that book, he talks about the fact that, that we don't need the drug solutions are not what we're mindful. These sorts of mindfulness activities and meditation are far more effective than any drug use for helping with our mental health. Sorry, I'm half an eye on something else because I've just remembered something I read on Tinterwebs. There's a paper published about also the dangers of mindfulness, because this phrase mindfulness gets used all over the shop. And I think there's something about mindfulness being used as a tool to constantly check yourself and constantly blame yourself. So there's that sort of like the other extreme. If you don't take it, or if you I think that was the I'll find the link.
Do you think that's why it's so much more important in business, is because it makes people, I not knowing what this thing is, but do you think that's like you get like Sharon's, like, I don't know, I keep hearing about kind of corporate sponsored mindfulness training, but you don't really hear meditation in that situation, do you?
No. They don't talk about it. And I think mindfulness, this whole sort of, because, sometimes, yes, you can't change that person that's making you really fucked off at work, but actually you don't have to accept it. Like there's a difference between making yourself healthy and not walk around holding all that contempt that you speak. You were talking about the person that doesn't clean up after themselves, and it makes your belly angry and it's really bad for you. But then sometimes you've just got to go, no, fuck you. This isn't about me. This is about you. Yeah. You are an arsehole. Bye. So
another type of boundary setting that is more.
So don't use mindfulness as a way of like putting everything bad on the world world onto you.
Yeah, it's like
yourself.
Like drugs are kind of the easiest way to sort of temporarily solve symptoms with whatever side effects may follow. Mindfulness is very effective, and meditation is also very effective at these things. But at a certain point, the underlying problem needs to be fixed, which usually comes back to what we're always going on about. Right? So it's all very well going. You can't say, instead of affecting this institutional change, just get everyone to meditate. Like, that's not the answer. Like, in the way, and at the moment, it's like everyone take these drugs so that you don't go out of your mind conforming to this system that treats you like a robot slave. Just take this Valium, take this Xanax every day. At least meditation at least kind of keeps, I guess you at least sort of maintain a few more faculties and still have the ability to get angry against the machine. So in that way, it's an improvement. I just keep coming back to, my journey with quitting alcohol has always, and just even antidepressants as well, but like, has always been like, the thing that was good about it was you just drink this thing and you feel better. So much easier than going for a run or doing half an hour meditation. So you just drink a drink that tastes nice. It's way better. Take a little pill. It's done. Like, it's just such a different thing. It's a lot more effort. It's a lot more work to do it. A lot more itching to deal with.
Yes, a lot more nose scratching.
Yeah. trouble with meditation, where I feel
with meditation
where I feel
is...
shortchanged by it, is where mastery of it does not appear to give you levitation powers. No levitation powers. So what's the point? I want to be
What is the point?
What's his face in Street Fighter 2? Dalsim.
I think I'd like to. I've just added meditation to your Habits app.
Ooh, I haven't added it
See
to
if it
mine,
can-
but if you guys, if you want to meditate, there's a really good app in the App Store called Good Habits. You have to have an Apple device.
Yeah. Anyway, okay then. That was nice.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening.
If you like the podcast, there's a website for it for some reason, grandpodcast.com, with a nice button for subscribing if there's not an obvious button right in front of you when you come back to this app. Where can people find you, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
You can find me at michaelforestmusic.com, goodtohear.co.uk, blankstate.org, all over. Very inactive in all of those areas, but I'm mostly YouTube. Anyway, if you're a big shot, like if you're important, if you're a big deal, right?
Yeah. Where are you going with
There's
this?
this thing called Patreon, which is where you can be a patron of the arts. And all you've got to do is go to this website, patreon.com/grandpodcast. And because you're a big shot, £100 is nothing to you. $100. just pledge £100. It's every month, but that's psychologically, you don't necessarily take in that it's a lot more. Support the podcast on Patreon. Be generous. What else? Does anyone want to help?
If you if you're not feeling plush, then please do give us some feedbacks and ratings and reviews, or simply recommend the podcast to one person this week. Make a habit of it.
Good habits. Recommend Grand
Good
Podcast to one
habit.
person.
Put it in the Habits app. Recommend Grand Podcast once a week.
Marvellous.
Marvellous. That would be so cool, and we would be so grateful. Michael is just showing me the tiniest origami crane that the world has ever seen.
Maybe I'll make...
Those of you who have known Michael for a while will know about his obsession with making origami cranes. This one was really little. It fits on your fingertip.
It's very small. Do you know what? If you support us on Patreon, I'll send you one. How about that? And a mug.
Wow.
Ooh, well,
and a
maybe
mug.
Maybe we should make that
Can
like
we
a
afford
reward.
some mugs?
I need to do the
Yeah,
mugs.
that's true.
We've got very nice mugs. Maybe we could make the rewards like an actual object, and then maybe
that might work.
that'd be nice.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's everything. Ratings, reviews, all that shizzle. You don't have to help us, but it's nice. It's free content. This is the 91st hour. It's just so much. I know it's not like, I know we're not Mark Maron doing like, he's up at 1,000, but he's doing like 2 or 3 a week. We're doing 1 a week. I think that's pretty good. So,
I think so. Well done, us.
And we're not even relying on celebrities.
No, not a celebrity in sight.
Not a celebrity in sight, for better or worse. But anyway, hopefully see you next time. And drop us an email if you want us to talk about something or learn about something. We will, probably. But yeah, hopefully see you next time. Bye.
Bye.